What's up, Internet? It is I here to guide you. I'm not going to guide you anywhere, but I am going to provide a review of the UTSA coding bootcamp, which I just finished like 3 weeks ago. Um, and it's a I went to the coding bootcamp because they have several programs through the University of Texas at San Antonio School of Data Science. But at least to my knowledge, this facet of this boot camp is facilitated through Trilogy Education Services. Some people that I know may be familiar with Trilogy. I've heard nothing but bad things about Trilogy. And the truth is, upon me finding like a lot of bad things about Trilogy, I really couldn't understand them. And I really couldn't understand some of the complaints because even while I was going through boot camp, those complaints didn't reflect my experience at all. That's not to say there are not negative things to say about the boot camp. I just didn't was not consistent with what I was reading, so my experience is a little bit different. Um, so I guess right from the start, and a little bit of background about me, so that you understand where I was coming from when I started boot camp. I'm 38 years old. I'm going to be 39 like in a few weeks. Um, and I got my undergraduate degree from the Texas State University. I got two undergraduate degrees, one in music and one in psychology, both Bachelor of Arts. Um, and I spent most of my career as either a working musician or working in case management, which is really like, man, you talk about a dead end job. And then no hate to any of the case managers out there. It's just that with only a bachelor's degree, it can be really hard to do anything above, entry level case management. I mean, maybe you'll become a case manager too, but it's hard. And actually these days the master's degree is what is being sought out to be a case manager, and the pay is kind of garbage. And we're seeing that kind of across all industry that it's not really. So you can maybe understand you're probably in the same situation if you're thinking about going to a boot camp, thinking about making a different kind of future for yourself. I'm 38 by the time I made that decision. But like I said, most of my background either playing music or being a case manager. Um, and it was good. I just happen to have all this cool stuff because I'm a musician. But anyway, that's where I was coming in, going to boot camp, and right from the get go, uh, this I don't want to name names, but we did have a few coordinators trying to help us through this boot camp, and one of the main ones, she was a very very nice lady, very accommodating, and on the first day of class, she gave us this really really long spiel about how intense the program was. And I was, initially I thought, well, okay, I understand, and I understood what she was saying because she was trying to get at the fact that a lot of people don't understand the intensity, and they come later either asking for a refund or expressing that they weren't ready for this level of intensity. And so she's kind of telling everybody up front so that they know, and you've got like 12 days to get your money back, etc. And after that, you owe the money. Like, that's it. And all the rigors and all the barriers of, like, you're not going to get the certificate if you miss more than like 8 class periods. You're not going to get you're not going to get the certificate if you miss more than two homeworks, etc. And so when that talk started, I thought, okay, sure, there's like all these liability things, but it just kept going, and it seemed really excessive. And I joked to some close people of mine. I thought, yeah, she's out there going, it's going to take at least 40 hours a week. You're not going to have any kind of success in this class because it's so intense. And you're going to be coding 10 hours a day, at least. Because if you don't code at least 20 hours a day, then it's going to be a total waste. You're not going to know where you're at. And at about the 40-hour a day mark, it's just going to be absolutely not enough to get through this class successfully, because really what it requires is 90 hours a day. That's the way the talk felt like. Um, and it did. It felt excessive, and I was just thinking, like, okay, we get it. You've got the liability covered, And oh boy, uh, I know I was joking when I said 90 hours a day, but you got to put in time, and I kind of set up the preface of my background as a musician and a case manager because there's no way around it. Like, your education, your background, like whatever it is you do. I mean, I think, even if you have a background in computer science, um, it's so different. It's so different. And I definitely don't want to be discouraging. As a matter of fact, I want to encourage people. People always ask me, like, is it hard? Yes, it's very hard. Should you do it? Yes. If if your heart is in the right place, and I'll get to that at the end. Why you want to do coding. If your heart is in the right place, yes, I think you should do it. But back to the UTSA thing. So that's kind of the way it started. And already I was a little bit, kind of put off. But, then class started. And I want to say overall that the instructors and the TAs, very knowledgeable, very helpful. And there's a great support system. You can get your tutor. You sign up for a tutor. And I would recommend that if you're going to go to the UTSA, I would recommend that from week one, you sign up for a tutor and you start doing, working every week, no matter how comfortable you feel with the material. Week one, HTML and CSS, very, very, very basic. Um, get with a tutor. You want to stay on top of what you're doing. You don't want to fall behind. Trust me. Um, so, and they have some other resources for career things as well. I did not get to utilize those things. I think I spent the most of my time coding. I also want to add that I was not working during this time. As a matter of fact, I got a really, really good, high paying job just before, like a few months before this boot camp started. But I already had the intention of going to boot camp. This job paid a large amount of money, like, this could be your career type of amount of money, uh, and such that I was able to save up enough money, not to get a loan, because if I had gotten the loan, I pretty much would have wiped out all my savings. I mean, if I would have paid cash, I would have wiped out all my savings. But I got enough that, like, basically I could survive on savings through the entirety of the boot camp and just focus on that. And man, I'll be honest, it was hard then. And I'm a single dad, and my son's mom shares a lot of the work with me, and she's really, really helpful. And we make a very, very good team in raising him. But still, it's just very, very intense. And I really can't even imagine some of the other people in my class who I really admire that were also similarly looking for that change, that career change, looking for just like a new way of life, kind of a way out. A lot of people working in the service industry, which is a really hard thing to do in the first place, much less right now in the middle of a pandemic, with kids. I don't know how they manage the time. So, getting a little sidetracked, but this is basically how the boot camp like breaks down. I don't know how other boot camps are, but the way we did it, it was Monday, Wednesday, and Saturdays. Uh, Evenings on Mondays and Wednesdays, like from 6:30 to 9:30 or something like that. Yeah, and then Saturdays from 10 a.m. to about 2. Those were the scheduled meeting times. And there was, you get your little module that you're gonna pull from their little repository. They have a repository for the class that's hosted on their website. Um, and you pull every week. You pull the new module. So for week one, there's pre-work. You got to learn how to use your GitHub a little bit. You got to learn a tiny bit about setting up the command line in the terminal. Or using Git Bash. If you're on Windows, you can do all that pre-work. I would recommend that you do that. That you set that up before class starts, because on the first day it's gonna be really hard. Um, and then you just kind of go right into it. And week one is HTML and CSS, and you learn the basics. Um, and it was intimidating for me. I had really have hardly any background in any of those things. I knew a tiny bit of HTML in high school, but it's changed so much. Back then you used to style things in line, like at least that's was the way I learned. You would style things in line on the HTML side, and there was no CSS file that would attach to that. and this makes it a lot easier actually. Um, but that's how far behind I was, I guess is what I'm getting at. Um, and uh, so my first complaint is that you pull down that repository and you have all the activities that your instructor walks you through. Activity one, the hello world, however that works out. And you've got like 30 activities a week, right? And at the end, there's a mini project and also a homework assignment, right? And the idea with the mini projects is to kind of take all of the things and you kind of put them all together into something that resembles, uh, you know, something that looks finished. um, like I think at the end of the first week, you wind up with a little page. Like your mini project is like a little page that shows, like a square in the middle. It's basically centering a bunch of divs, which has become a meme. Uh, so you do that, and then it progresses as you go on. You get a new module, and you're gonna go into advanced CSS now. Some advanced styling things. Um, and but the complaint that I have is that there's this folder called algorithms, which for a long time, like, it just sat there and I never knew, like, I was like, surely we're gonna get to that, but it was so intense. Like everything else was like we were getting so much information, and it takes practice. It's just like an instrument, like, you have to practice. There's no way around it. So that little folder, that algorithm folder, it wasn't until probably week, oh God, probably somewhere in the 19 or 20, week 20 or so, when the instructor was just like, hey, by the way, you're supposed to do those, like, and there's 30 algorithms each week. You're supposed to do those every week. And so I finally opened it up and I was like, oh, you know I haven't done any of these. And they're really, what they are is they're like practice, uh you know kind of the same thing that you would do like on Leet Code or Algo Expert, or Code Wars. Similar. You're gonna practice, like, you know give me an algorithm that takes in a certain value and returns like this other value. In the beginning, they're really, really easy, and they start when you get to JavaScript. um, you know your first one might be like, write an algorithm that takes in two values and returns the sum of those two values, right? Like really, really basic and easy, right? As you go on, they start to get, but they don't cover that in class. And that's kind of a little complaint of mine, is that, um, I think that, if you just want to be kind of a front end developer, um, or even somewhat like most of web development, you can sort of make some applications. You can make stuff without like too much algorithmic craziness. Like, you can make stuff for sure. Uh, but if you're like in the endeavor of getting working for like a Fang, or like I think I call them Mangum now because of the meta, instead of Facebook. But if you're like wanting to work for one of those big giant tech companies, like, you're gonna need to learn that stuff. That's your interview. The algorithms is your interview, and they told us that on the last day, and that's when I got really pissed. They were like, "You're gonna have answer an You're not gonna get the job until you get the algorithm interview." And it's like, we spent this whole time doing all this shit, and it's useful. Don't get me wrong, and we didn't cover this at all. Now you're telling me that to get the job, I need the stuff we didn't cover. That was a little strange. And also, I say that because I'm a pretty self motivated guy. Like, I'm very creative, but school is hard for me. School is really, really hard for me, and school is one of the things where I need, basically, I paid to have my handheld because I tried to do it on my own, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I was too discouraged, too aimless. There's too many resources out there for me. Some people can do it. I'm not one of those people. Maybe you are. You might want to try it. Maybe you have a friend who's also a web developer, or some kind of software engineer, and they can guide you. Maybe you have those resources. I didn't really feel like I had those resources, and so doing it by myself or doing it with a boot camp and having my hand held and structured in a way where I felt like there was less of a chance I could mess up, was important to me, and I paid a lot of money. So, it's like 11 or 12, maybe 13 grand. It's a lot for me. So, so that's one thing, and I wish I would have known that going in.